the untold story of Hema Malini's two daughters. Behind the glittering facade of Bollywood's most celebrated power couple lies a story that few have dared to tell. When the dream girl of Indian cinema fell in love with the He-Man of Bollywood, their romance didn't just create headlines. It created two remarkable women whose journeys would challenge every expectation placed upon them. Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of Hema Malini's daughters, Esha and Ahana Deol, and discovering how growing up as Bollywood royalty shaped their destinies in ways nobody could have predicted. Picture this. It's the late 70s, and two of India's biggest superstars are falling madly in love on a film set. But this wasn't just any romance. This was a love story that would rock the very foundations of traditional Indian society. Hema Malini, the ethereal beauty who could make audiences weep with a single glance, and Dharmendra, the rugged action hero who defined masculinity for an entire generation, were about to create something extraordinary together. Not just their legendary films, but a family that would carry both their legacies into the future. When Esha Deol was born in November 1981, she entered a world where cameras flashed before she could even walk. Her very existence was front-page news, the living proof of Bollywood's most talked-about love affair. 2 years later, when little sister Ahana arrived in July 1983, the Deol household wasn't just a home. It was a dynasty in the making. But here's where the story gets fascinating. While the world expected these girls to simply follow in their parents' golden footsteps, reality had very different plans. Growing up in the shadow of two legendary careers meant that every choice, every stumble, every triumph would be magnified 1,000 times over. The pressure wasn't just to succeed, it was to live up to an almost impossible standard of perfection. Esha, the elder daughter, seemed destined for stardom from day one. She had inherited her mother's classical beauty and her father's commanding presence. As a child, she watched her mother transform into different characters, mastering the art of dance and drama with an elegance that seemed almost otherworldly. She saw her father command respect on every film set, his very presence changing the energy of entire productions. For young Esha, this wasn't just normal. This was life. The expectations began early. Society watched her every move, waiting to see if she would become the next generation's dream girl. Would she carry forward her mother's legacy of classical dance and timeless beauty? Or would she forge her own path entirely? The pressure was immense, but it was also invisible to most outsiders. After all, how do you complain about having everything when you're born into Bollywood royalty? Meanwhile, Ahana was growing up with a completely different perspective. As the younger sister, she had the unique vantage point of watching Esha navigate the treacherous waters of public expectation. She saw firsthand how every decision her sister made became headline news. Every outfit choice, every friendship, every career move was dissected by millions of strangers who felt they had a right to judge. What most people didn't realize was that behind the glamorous exterior, the Deol household was surprisingly normal in many ways. Hema Malini, despite her superstar status, was a hands-on mother who insisted on traditional values. She made sure her daughters understood the importance of education, respect for elders, and staying grounded despite their privileged circumstances. Dharmendra, the action hero who could make grown men tremble on screen, was a doting father who worried about his girls just like any other dad. But normal was relative when your mother was one of India's most celebrated actresses and your father was Bollywood's original tough guy. Family dinners often included discussions about upcoming film projects, script readings, and the politics of the entertainment industry. The girls grew up understanding not just the glamour of cinema, but also its harsh realities. Esha's journey into Bollywood seemed inevitable, yet when it finally happened, it was anything but smooth. Her debut film generated massive buzz, not necessarily for her performance, but because she was Hema Malini's daughter. Critics were waiting with sharpened knives, ready to tear apart any hint of nepotism or undeserved privilege. The weight of carrying forward her mother's legacy while establishing her own identity created a pressure cooker environment that would have broken many others. What made things even more complicated was the changing landscape of Bollywood itself. The industry that had celebrated her parents was evolving rapidly. New faces, new styles, and new expectations meant that simply being a star kid wasn't enough anymore. Audiences were becoming more discerning, and the competition was fiercer than ever before. Ahana, watching her sister's struggles from the sidelines, began to question whether the entertainment industry was really where she wanted to spend her life. She saw the toll that constant scrutiny took on Esha, the way every failure was magnified and every success was attributed to family connections rather than personal merit. This observation would later influence some of the most important decisions of her own life. The sisters' relationship with their half-brothers, Sunny and Bobby Deol, added another layer of complexity to their story. Here were two men who had also grown up in the spotlight, who understood the unique challenges of being Dharmendra's children. Yet their experiences were fundamentally different because they were sons in a patriarchal industry, and they had grown up with their father's first wife, creating a family dynamic that was both loving and complicated. As the girls entered their teenage years, the differences between them became more pronounced. Esha embraced the spotlight, understanding that it came with the territory of being born into their family. She learned to handle media attention with grace, developing the thick skin necessary to survive in an industry that could be both incredibly rewarding and utterly ruthless. Ahana, on the other hand, began to retreat from public attention. She watched her sister deal with criticism that seemed harsh and often unfair, and she started to question whether fame was worth the cost. This difference in their approaches to publicity would later define their very different career paths and life choices. The influence of their mother's classical dance background cannot be understated in shaping both daughters. Hema Malini wasn't just an actress. She was a trained Bharatanatyam dancer who had brought Indian classical arts to mainstream cinema. Both girls grew up immersed in this rich cultural tradition, understanding that their heritage went far beyond just Bollywood glamour. This cultural grounding gave them a sense of identity that transcended their celebrity status. They understood that they were part of something larger than just the entertainment industry. They were carriers of Indian tradition, representatives of a cultural legacy that stretched back centuries. As we've seen so far, the story of Hema Malini's daughters is far more complex than simple tales of star kids following in their parents' footsteps. Their journeys have been marked by unique challenges, difficult choices, and the constant pressure of living up to an almost impossible legacy. If you're fascinated by these untold stories of Bollywood's most famous families, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Drop a comment below telling us what aspect of their story surprised you the most, and stay tuned because in the next part, we'll reveal the shocking decisions both sisters made that changed their lives forever. But the real turning point came when both sisters reached adulthood and had to make career-defining decisions that would shock everyone who thought they knew their predetermined paths. Esha's entry into Bollywood wasn't the fairy tale debut that many expected. Her first film received mixed reviews, and suddenly the harsh reality of being a second-generation star hit like a freight train. Critics weren't just evaluating her acting skills. They were comparing her to her mother's iconic performances from decades past. The pressure was suffocating. Every interview became a minefield where journalists would ask why she wasn't as graceful as Hema Malini, why she hadn't mastered classical dance to the same degree, why her screen presence seemed different from the dream girl's ethereal charm. Esha found herself defending not just her own choices, but also explaining why she deserved to exist as an individual artist rather than simply as her mother's carbon copy. What made things even more challenging was the changing nature of Bollywood itself. The early 2000s marked a shift toward more realistic cinema, away from the larger-than-life romantic dramas that had made her parents superstars. Esha had to navigate an industry that was simultaneously expecting her to recreate her mother's magic while also demanding something completely fresh and contemporary. The young actress threw herself into her craft with determination that surprised even her critics. She took on diverse roles, from action films to romantic comedies, refusing to be typecast as just another pretty face trading on family connections. But with each project, the scrutiny intensified. Success was attributed to nepotism, while failures were magnified as proof that star kids couldn't truly earn their place in the industry. Meanwhile, Ahana was making a decision that would leave everyone speechless. While the world expected her to follow her sister into acting, she quietly began pursuing a completely different passion. She had always been drawn to the behind-the-scenes aspects of filmmaking, fascinated by the technical and creative processes that brought stories to life, but her choice went even deeper than career preferences. Ahana had watched her sister endure years of harsh criticism and realized that she wanted no part of that particular spotlight. She valued privacy and normalcy in ways that seemed almost impossible for someone born into Bollywood royalty. Her decision to step away from the obvious path of stardom wasn't rebellion, it was self-preservation and authentic self-discovery. The sisters' different approaches to handling their legacy created fascinating contrasts in their personalities. Esha developed a thick skin and fierce determination, learning to channel criticism into motivation for better performances. She refused to let anyone diminish her achievements or question her right to pursue her dreams. Her resilience became one of her defining characteristics, earning respect from industry veterans who had initially dismissed her as just another Nepo kid. Ahana, on the other hand, cultivated a quiet strength that manifested in her commitment to causes and relationships rather than public recognition. She understood that influence didn't always require being in front of cameras. Sometimes the most meaningful impact came from working behind the scenes, supporting others, and staying true to your values regardless of public opinion. Their mother's influence remained constant throughout these challenging years. Hema Malini had experienced her own share of controversies and criticisms throughout her career, and she provided both daughters with invaluable guidance on handling public pressure. She taught them that authenticity was more important than popularity, and that their self-worth couldn't be determined by box office numbers or media coverage. The relationship between the sisters also evolved as they faced their individual challenges. Rather than competing for attention or opportunities, they became each other's strongest supporters. Esha's public battles with critics were met with unwavering support from Ahana, who understood better than anyone the unique pressures her sister faced. In return, Esha respected and admired Ahana's choice to prioritize personal happiness over public acclaim. As both women entered their 30s, their paths took even more unexpected turns. Esha's career had its ups and downs, but she had proven her staying power and earned respect as a serious actress rather than just a star kid riding on family fame. Her dedication to her craft and refusal to give up in the face of adversity had transformed her from a curiosity into a legitimate talent. Ahana's journey led her toward marriage and motherhood, choices that brought her the fulfillment and stability she had always craved. Her decision to prioritize family life over career ambitions was met with mixed reactions from a society that still struggled to understand why someone with every opportunity for fame would choose ordinary happiness instead. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of both their stories was how they maintained their close bond with their parents while establishing their own identities. Dharmendra's pride in both daughters was evident in every interview, where he would speak about their individual strengths and accomplishments without comparing them to each other or to previous generations. The lessons learned from watching their parents' legendary romance also influenced how both sisters approached their own relationships. They understood that love in the public eye came with unique challenges, but they also saw firsthand that authentic partnership could survive even the harshest scrutiny when built on mutual respect and genuine connection. Today, both Esha and Ahana Deol have carved out lives that reflect their individual values and priorities. Their journeys prove that being born into privilege doesn't guarantee an easy path, and that true success comes from having the courage to define it for yourself rather than letting others dictate your worth. Their story continues to evolve, reminding us that even in the glamorous world of Bollywood, Real life is more complex and beautiful than any script could capture. These two remarkable women have shown that legacy isn't just about carrying forward what came before. Sometimes it's about having the wisdom to know when to honor tradition and when to write your own rules. If this deep dive into the real lives behind Bollywood's glittering facade has opened your eyes to stories you never knew existed, smash that like button and let us know in the comments which part of their journey resonated with you most. Subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from the world of Indian cinema, because trust us, we're just getting started with revealing the fascinating truths behind your favorite stars. The untold story of Hema Malini's daughters reveals something profound about the nature of legacy and choice. Esha and Ahana Deol didn't just inherit their parents' fame. They inherited the complex responsibility of defining what that inheritance would mean for their own lives. One chose to face the spotlight head-on, battling critics and carving out her own space in an industry that never stopped comparing her to her legendary mother. The other chose a different kind of courage, stepping away from expected paths to find fulfillment on her own terms. What makes their story truly remarkable isn't just their individual journeys, but how they've redefined what it means to be Bollywood royalty in the modern age. They've shown that privilege comes with its own set of chains, and breaking free requires strength that goes far beyond what any camera can capture. Through every triumph and setback, they've remained authentic to themselves while honoring the incredible legacy their parents built together. Their bond as sisters, strengthened rather than weakened by their different choices, proves that family isn't just about sharing the same spotlight. Sometimes it's about having someone who understands the weight you carry, even when the world can't see it. Esha and Ahana Deol have taught us that the most beautiful stories aren't always the ones that follow the script everyone expects. If you've enjoyed uncovering the real story behind these two extraordinary women, hit that like button and drop a comment telling us what surprised you most about their journey. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from Bollywood's most fascinating families.